Georgia versus Ole Miss. That's the New Year's night game. Sugar Bowl kicks off at 8 p.m. Eastern down there in New Orleans. It's proudly presented to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors. I have it on very good authority that you could throw a pebble down there in the greater New Orleans area and hit 5 academies. Academi, plural. Not according to their official marketing, but according to me. It's been a long time since we saw Georgia. I don't know why it feels this way, because Georgia played the same weekend that Indiana did and the same weekend that Texas Tech did. I feel like it's been 13 months since I saw Georgia play a game. It hasn't even been 13 months since they played Ole Miss the first time around. But I do have just a refresher course for any of you who have forgotten that game in Athens. 43-35 was the final. That was way back in the Lane Kiffin era for Ole Miss. Georgia over Ole Miss, and Georgia did not punt in the game. I'm going to say something here. It's going to sound disrespectful. It's not. It's just an observation, and you guys are free to prove me wrong. How does Georgia not have a significant coaching staff edge in this game? I would say it if Lane was there. I say that with most Georgia games because Georgia's got an incredible coaching staff, but especially when you consider all the churn. I'm not just talking about replacing Lane Kiffin. In fact, in a one-off scenario, I don't view that as being the huge deal. Fragmented attention spans, I do view as being a huge deal. You could convince me all you want to that everyone's doing their due diligence and there's not a worry in the world about guys splitting time between heading off to LSU but still sticking behind to coach. Well, they're humans. So it absolutely does play a role here because Kirby Smart's got a building full of guys that aren't going anywhere, largely, including himself and his coordinators, at least that we know of. So, and that's no hint. I legitimately mean just anything could happen at any time. So, yeah, it's an edge for Georgia. And this is where Georgia's season ended last year. This very building. You remember the Notre Dame game? And remember Gunnar Stockton getting, I think that was his first start, right, Jesse? He came in the SEC championship game, and then he started down there in the Sugar Bowl at 23-10, I want to say was the final. So, yeah, unpleasant memories as of late in the Sugar Bowl for Georgia. I have a theory here. It may sound bold. I don't think this is that bold. I think Trinidad Chambliss is the most dangerous quarterback in the playoffs this year. So you can decipher that however you want to. I didn't know if I wanted to say best, because that really comes down to, okay, what category are we measuring him in? Here's what I'm measuring. The guy who's already played at a pretty high level, but the guy that could still level his game up even more. In other words, if you wanted to do the very, very ill-conceived football to basketball comparison thing, he's the three-point shooter that could just get insanely hot and carry a team at the quarterback position. That's who Trinidad Chambliss is. He scored touchdowns. They, Ole Miss, scored touchdowns in their first 5 drives against Georgia the first time around. And that was his first SEC road start. So I'm going to assume he hadn't gotten worse since then. And I'm just telling you, because I had it disseminated to me by someone close to Georgia, no matter who we play in this tournament, that guy's the most dangerous. And I actually agree with him. Otherwise, I wouldn't have said it on air. I think he's the most dangerous. He poses the most unique challenge to Kirby Smart and that defense out of any quarterback they'll face the rest of the way. Now, they're favored against him. They should be favored against him. But if they can get through this thing, you maintain focus. But internally, I'd breathe a little sigh of relief that we got past that guy. No one's going to challenge us more than that guy did. He's got 10 games with a rush of 10-plus yards. Georgia didn't sack him last time. Now, Georgia's pass rush looks night and day different second half of the year, really just coming off that Ole Miss game. There are a lot of theories around Athens that something about the latter stages of that Ole Miss game really lit a spark in them. That was Georgia's rubber band moment defensively. I can't disprove that because the numbers largely back that up. So the Trinidad Chambliss factor is in play, and Gunnar Stockton yet again finds himself being the runner-up in terms of quarterback conversation in a game that he's playing, which is unfair. So around these parts, on this campus here at Pate State, we think Gunnar Stockton is one of the best big-game quarterbacks in the country. We don't have to pretend. We know. We saw him in the Tennessee game, and that was early in the season. And they go on the road, and they need him. They need 40, and he gets it for them, and they win. Against Texas, they hung 35, I think. They win comfortably. Against Ole Miss, they needed every one of those 43 points. And he was 26 of 31. He had 289 through the air. He had another 60 on the ground. He had 5 combined touchdowns. I think he played his best game against Ole Miss. And then in the SEC championship game, did everything that was asked of him. So Gunnar Stockton's been really good in big moments, and I don't think Georgia needs explosive plays as long as they're not giving them up. Hey guys, do me one favor. Check and see if you're subscribed to the channel. If you are, great. If you're not, it's that easy. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't sign you up for anything. It just helps us do the show this way forever. All right, back to the clip. Now, if you're giving them up, that's a whole different thing. Ole Miss is top 10 in explosive plays. They're top 10 in cap buster plays, which we classify as gains of 40-plus yards. Georgia doesn't give up a ton of those. And as long as they don't in this game, I don't care. Georgia's like in the 60s and the 120s in explosive plays and cap buster plays. That's okay. Did you watch that Alabama game? Didn't have a ton of explosive plays. Still suffocated the opposition. Did you watch the Georgia Tech game? Ditto, ditto. So the difference is you watch Alabama in Atlanta, there's no world where they could play that game 3 times and Bama wouldn't have scored a combined 35, nor would Georgia Tech the week before. Ole Miss can do it. So if you're giving up explosives, well, then you got to press the issue a little bit. Kirby Smart, I think if Georgia were to lose the game, will lose the game because he forced Trinidad Chambliss to be exactly what I said he could be. Because here's why I don't think Georgia would lose the game. I struggle to see a scenario where, the clock strikes midnight, New Year's night. All the games have been played, the dust settles in New Orleans, and Ole Miss has won the game. And they've won it because Kewan Lacey goes for 180 on the ground. Teams just don't beat Georgia running the ball conventionally. You can beat them, but that's just not the way you do it. I would be very, very surprised if that's the way they did it. He had 12 carries for 31 yards the first time around. That was a season low for him. You may be getting a 150% version of him health-wise. I just don't think that's going to be the reason they lose. Now, if Trinidad Chambliss goes off, that's a whole nother story, because there's a level of athlete at quarterback in college football that, especially if he's got it with his legs and he's making the throws, there's not much a college football defense can do about it. I'm talking about the best defenses of all time. Kirby was the coordinator on some defenses in the mid-20 teens that were way more loaded than this defense is now, and Deshaun Watson happened to him, and it didn't matter how loaded they were. So that's always been the case in college football. There's a certain caliber of athlete that if he's clicking, throwing the ball, and you know what he can do with his legs, you just got to outscore him. So if that happens, that happens. I highly doubt Trinidad Chambliss has an okay day and Ole Miss just traditionally runs their way to a win. I don't see that. You also know this, if you're Georgia, you don't have to be perfect. Like Miami, we're going to talk about Miami and Ohio State a little bit later. Miami has to capitalize on every single scoring opportunity, and Ohio State might have to as well because they figure to be few and far between. If you're Georgia defensively, you don't have to pitch a shutout. You don't have to hope to hold them under 20. Just as long as you are what you know you can be offensively, that's okay. You don't want to give up points, but that's okay. Just as long as they had to earn it, just as long as you didn't give them short fields, just as long as you didn't bust assignments, if they're earning it, then that's okay. And you know what? If they beat you doing that, sometimes you just tip your cap. You don't have to be happy about it, but you just tip your cap. But it's been really hard to cut the head off the snake that is Georgia this year. Several teams got close, but not enough teams stepped up to do it. And so there they are, or here they are. Affecting the quarterback. Neither of these teams has been through the roof statistically for the whole year. Georgia's been very good about it as of late. But there's a difference, all due respect to the mobility of one Ty Simpson, there's a little bit of a difference in affecting Ty Simpson versus affecting Trinidad Chambliss. The Georgia run game, I think, is the most reliable facet in this thing. And huge hats off to that staff, by the way. Remember this time last year, they were headed into New Orleans, same building they'll be going into this week. And we were asking, man, can Georgia win without being able to run the ball? Because, they couldn't run the ball very effectively last year. Well, they're up there, I think, in the 30s this year, high 20s, low 30s. depending on which metric you're looking at. So they resurrected that ground game plenty effectively enough, and I think that's the most reliable facet here. I do think from a psychological standpoint, there is a card Pete Golding can play. That whole Ole Miss versus the world thing, yeah, that'll play. That'll play. And you use whatever you need to use as fuel at this point. I do think from a if you want to go the psychological route, and not everyone does, but if you want to go the psychological route, yeah, Pete and the guys over there can use the us versus the world mantra. You don't think Kirby Smart's reminding folks what happened the last time that team was in New Orleans? Yeah, so I view that as a wash. Let's take a look at what the model thinks. FanDuel's got Georgia minus 6.5 right now. The model a little bit higher on Ole Miss. Got Georgia minus 5. I just trust Kirby in these games. I trust Kirby in these games. And my third reason for this pick is I trust Kirby in these games. So I will take Georgia to win and cover